Good morning from sunny Costa Rica. Paradise. Hola. I wanted to talk about an interesting topic inspired by a conversation I had a few weeks ago while I was back in Canada. That conversation was to do with somebody was asking about, I don't know if it was levels of corruption, crime, or any of that stuff. And in regards to Costa Rica, because they had never been here. And you know, most people, if you never traveled much, you really just know what you know from movies and TV. And what some people think Costa Rica is an island in the Caribbean, and I have to correct them. It's not. It's just above Panama. It's in Central America, and it borders the Pacific Ocean on the west coast and the Caribbean on the east coast. Apparently, if you're in the middle of the country on a clear day, you can see both oceans. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard that. So we're talking geography. I want to talk about legalities and stuff like that, and the conversation, which I don't really remember exactly what we were going on about, but my response was that of all this is just my opinion, by the way, I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, of all the Central and South American countries, there might be some in South America that are more so with what I'm saying. Of all those countries, we're talking Mexico right down to the very tip of Argentina, all the countries, Costa Rica is the most, I don't want to say modernized, organized. Many of people consider it a third world country, but it's not. Now, let me explain. So they have a pretty good government here. So everything starts with the government. If you have a pretty good government and you have the ability to run a business, buy real estate, you can own real estate, the more freedom you have in that area, and you have to be able to avoid corruption as much as possible. Corruption's always going to be there, even in Canada and the US and other countries, I'm sure. But and a lot of people think that Central and South America are just loaded with corruption. It could be. I know Mexico is pretty bad, and Costa Rica is too. It's just not as bad. So, hola. So, yeah, the lesser of many evils, so to speak. So, but what Costa Rica has going for it is the fact that they respect the environment. So they seem to be most strict with their laws in regards to the environment. Like, you could never come down here and do anything that would threaten that with any of your business or industries that you might want to break into, especially things like mining and that. There are no mines in Costa Rica. Maybe someday that'll change, but I'm sure if they do that, the rules will be very, very strict and enforced. So, the rules down here, though, in other areas, a little more lax. So, for example, building codes. Okay, if you have a building that you're going to get built, you go to an architect, they're going to follow the rules. You could see that there are strict rules when it comes to building. Lots of rebar, lots of construction to make sure that it's resistant to earthquakes, because earthquakes are a reality down here. So you see it in all the construction. People look at it and go, why is there so much rebar? Why are there so much reinforcement? Well, that's why. And you know, you might be able to get away with that more so than what you would do, say, if you were in a more modern country like Canada or the US or whatever. I don't see it too often, but Costa Rica seems to have their act together in that department. But there are nuances in areas that area gets sort of like overlooked. And let me explain. You could see like things like building codes. sidewalks, steps. Sometimes the way they mix concrete, you're like, eh, you know, they wouldn't do that. And the way they just sort of like climb up a building, and they have different safety codes. It's a lot more, I guess, primal, for lack of a better word. But they get by. You know, I've seen people working on a building, mixing concrete on the side of the road with a shovel. So they have concrete mixed water, they have a hose, and they just mix it manually. You got to wonder, okay, well, hopefully they have the right concrete. Hopefully they're mixing it properly, because, you know, they're building a sidewalk and you want that to last, because, you know, safety is an issue. And things like that. So other than that, Costa Rica has their strengths. I think of all the countries, they are the best. That's what I'm getting at, and that's what I told that person way back when the conversation came up as to how corrupt or what the legalities are like in Costa Rica. So yeah, it's different in those ways. So if you wanted to build an addition on your house, I don't know, you could probably easily get away with it. Back home, you might get caught. They might ask you to tear it down, go to the city, do it proper, get the blueprints, engineer's report, blah, 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 blah. The thing that they have the most going for them is back to the environment. They protect their environment and they protect their citizens. So if you wanted to start a business down here, you have to hire locals. That's the rule, 100%. And they enforce that more so in certain areas than they do in others, where it's easier to get away with it. But mostly they really take care of their own, and for good reason. That's a good thing. So they have a good foundation. That's what I'm getting at. A good foundation for buying and selling real estate. They protect their own. They have a lot of laws to protect the environment, and they have a really good education system, and they have a pretty good government overall. There's going to be some corruption, obviously, and that's unavoidable, but because we're humans, right? So anyways, that's all I got to say. I think there was one final point that I wanted to bring up, and that was to do, yeah, my final point, I just remembered. North America is a very litigious, you know, there's a lot of lawsuits. That's a mouthful. You don't see that down here. I'm sure it exists, but you know, if you tripped and fell and hurt yourself in the front of a business because there was a crack in the sidewalk, you really wouldn't be able to sue the. Well, maybe you could try, but they kind of look at that and go, well, "What are you doing? You're not watching where you're walking." So they have a no-nonsense approach to the law when it comes to lawsuits. So you rarely see any of that. And, in that respect, it's a bit of the Wild West going on, but it's kind of cool. It's organic, it's casual, it's pura vida. All right, I am walking towards the beach. It's a beautiful sunny day. If you have any questions or if you want to correct me on anything, put it in the comments. I'd like to hear from you. All right, thanks.